Hello virtual pilots, YouTube and all others that may be interested in how we fire a weapons system into a target area that we can't see. Sometimes it may be at night, other times it may be through cloud cover, but what makes this one different is not only is it the thickest of fog, but we also find the target ourselves. And not only do we find it, it's not a static target, it's a moving target. And if that sounds like impossible, well, it almost is. I've spent the last couple of days trying this out with the F16, and although the F16 can find it, it is currently mid to late November 2021. Wow, that was a funny way of saying the date. I should restart, but I'm not going to. The F16 is unable to get that target information in a usable way to get a weapon onto where you want it to be. Just cutting real quick, the F16, as with all the modern jets, has two main ways to attack the ground targets. One is the continuously computed release point mode. The other is the continuously computed impact point. The reason this matters in the F16 is if I switch over to the impact point mode, I lose the ability to track ground targets. If I continuously compute the release point, I can track the ground target, but then I can't aim ahead of the ground target, and that's why the F16 currently is unable to engage moving targets accurately. You can get a weapon to where the target is now, but by the time the weapon falls off the plane and explodes on the ground, that target has moved onwards and out the way. Pause here real quick. Ignore the lack of fog. This is just for training only. I am using this left screen, the ground moving track mode in Azimuth 1 to track the target. Again, this only works in the continuously computed release mode, so I'm unable to CCRP it ahead of the target. Reason being, if I do, I lose the track. I look up, see it's moved right along the road, I turn to engage. Last pause, I promise. On this one here, you see I'm desperately trying to pull to the right to get that bomb to come off with that kinetic motion towards the right. You see bomb fall line and release cue is right in the middle. So here I couldn't, again, if I was wings left and pulled it here, clearly it's not going to have the right motion. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that bomb to have some velocity towards the right down the street, because this is the only chance that I had to try and get this in the F16. Here we see the munitions falling in slow motion and the convoy driving away unharmed underneath. I already know it's going to miss and I rage quit. However, the F18, being a more mature module, does not have this problem, and that's what this video is going to be all about, that we're going to get into right now. The situation is, enemy is using the cover of the fog to sneak some SCUDs across, SCUD missile systems. These don't have a radar signal, these are just creeping across using the fog as cover, and then they're going to fire off being in range of an important western base and then sneak out again under cover of fog. We heard this through where else that all elusive intelligence sources say. So without further ado, let's hop into the F18 waiting on the ramp for us. Hello and welcome to an extremely foggy day. We are in the F18, and as I hope I've just discussed the situations that remain with the F16, but hopefully not for long. I'm hoping that the F16 is going to be able to copy this mission real soon. So, what I'm going to do before I set off taxiing is just set up a couple of things. I'm going to put the external lights on. Myself a bingo of around 3.5 because the just because of the weather, we want to give ourselves a chance. I'm going to really make sure that my alt is on rad alt. That's going to be imperative to avoid crashing into the terrain. Next thing, I'm going to, for purposes of the track IR mode, put the HSI onto the left. Give myself the sequential waypoints and switch that into waypoint 1. Down here for now, I'm going to pop the ADI with INS mode activated, and that just lets me see at a glance am I heading into the dirt or into the sky. So with that, I'm going to look at departure, ensure that my external lights are on, which they are, and set myself up, recenter my view, there we go. See it real foggy. There were two guys stood there, barely saw them due to the weather. Alright, external lights on for what good it's going to do. For those of you sticking to the end, the little bonus part of the tutorial will be recovering this aircraft onto this runway in this weather. Under these conditions, though. Without further ado, let's go. Mill power. Let's ungate the burners and let them go. Very small presses on the rudder, and with that, nose up, wheels in, flaps in. Keep that 5 degree. We know we're good at 5 because the standard approach is 3.5 degrees, so if you're climbing away at 5 out of a runway, you're not going to hit anything. As that speed accelerates, I'm going to nose up and use the burners just to gain some height. I know that there are some hills just to the north of this airfield. They're not very big, but they're enough that I don't want to knowingly fly into them. And there. Recage the burners. And probably come out of mill at this point. I'm going to look at engaging auto throttle at around this speed. We've got a huge amount of drag. If we look at the front of the aircraft now that we're out of the fog, see, we're pulling these 8 gigantic flat front canisters through the air, as well as the fuel pod. Although at least the fuel pod is aerodynamic, these 8 rocket pods are not. Waypoint 1 is purely a Bulls waypoint. So I'm going to switch over to waypoint 2 now and come to the data page. Actually drop back to waypoint 1. Just make sure that is in as AA waypoint. That's Bulls. Many people still don't bother with that, and alright, but then when you're in multiplayer, it's the little things like this that you set up ahead of time that just give you the edge when it gets busy. And this one could well get busy. Going to turn on the RWR. We do know that there are enemy SAMs around. Get the dispenser into bypass, and I'm going to leave that like that. Get my stick back on. We zoom out on the map just to get a little bit of situational awareness here. These last waypoints, let's just see what 2, 3, 4. So waypoints 5, 6, and 7 there form a border, and that is the no-fly zone. So if I go past that, I'm into the red airspace and can expect to be shot down. So what makes this mission a little bit different is not only is the weather bad, but because the weather is so bad and these guys are sneaking these Scud missile systems up under the cover of the fog, they're not escorting them with any SAMs, because of course the SAMs would alert everybody to their position, and so they're purely relying on stealth at this point. We're going to suss them out. So with that, let's get the master arm going. Let's get air to ground mode in, and let's set from map mode to ground moving track. Let's push that out to 40 with maximum range. Get the rockets ready. It's going to be off all 4 pylons, so salvo that. So one press of the trigger fires 1 rocket out of each pod. Can't remember if because they're on double, does that mean 8 rockets or 4 rockets a press? But either way, we're going to get at the very least 4 rockets per press, maybe more. Going to get the HSI onto the left now, the SA page, sorry, which is much like the HSI, except it will overlay the target onto the ground if the radar finds it. We're going to keep real close watch of that no-fly zone. And we can't climb too high near the border because there is a Russian S-300 missile system poised and looking. Let's, you know what? I got the seat. Let's set the radar. Because of the fog, I'm going to set it nice and high, something like 2,000 feet. And if I hear that, unless I've got visual confirmation with the terrain, I need to be wings level and pulling up. Let's drop the zoom back a bit now. I think we know what we're doing. So the convoy, we're to follow these waypoints, zigzagging, and look for the convoy. This zigzag more or less follows the coastal road area of the map. If I come to F10 real quick, it's this area here, and we're expecting the red guys to be pushing the scuds down along here somewhere so that they're in range of Tbilisi. And from around here, they can comfortably reach Tbilisi. They can't from up here, which is the max range of the Scud system. And there we pass waypoint 2, going to push out to waypoint 3. And on the right, we can already see a brick, perhaps even 2. It is a convoy, don't forget, so it is possible that the radar's picking these up as 2 or more targets. Actually shows how high of an accuracy the radar has, because to pick out a convoy from over 30 miles away and realize there's more than one vehicle in that convoy is a pretty high resolution, certainly for back in the day. I'm trying to keep my altitude below 5,000 just because that's where the radalt disappears. And if you lose the radalt and you're flying over hilly or mountainous terrain, it can bite you on the bum. Let's make the right hand sensor of interest and get the radar cursor over there ready. I think at this point we can afford to put out waypoint 3. I shan't update. I'm going to keep the going to unlock the waypoint as a position, but just keep the sequencing on there because it's showing me where the border is that I don't want to cross. And I'm coming fairly close to the northern limit at this point. And if I try and figure out his position, if I fly straight towards him, he's about 20 nautical miles on my 12, and if I make the left screen sensor of interest, 40 miles is up there, so if I zoom back in, do 20, he is definitely on our side of the border. Imagine that line there is the border and he's on 12 o'clock. That puts him 20 miles away, which is where my cursor is now. And clearly that's on our side of the border. So rules of engagement state we can take him on. We're not then going to give the Reds an excuse to engage us by crossing their side of the border. Clearly the intelligence reports were right. He's crossed in, so let's turn in again. And this time make right sensor of interest. Let's drop that down to 20 and let's lock the target most to the center. We've got his rough position, gonna make the right screen a lock, and speed is 21 knots. Target is heading roughly 117 degrees. We see him now on the SA page together with an arrow indicating his direction of travel.
Altitude.
But they're going to have absolutely no idea that we're here. I'm going to fly a little lower. Oh, it's foggy, but he dropped off radar, but we got his last known position. Let's turn in. He's back on. He's now inside 10 nautical miles. I'm just going to turn my helmet on a sec just to get an approximation of his position. He is there. Okay. Just set that one sec. Yeah, so he's there in the fog. Wonder if we still got lock on him, or was that just last known? Guesstimate position. Yeah, last known guesstimate. You see on there now we no longer have the information like before, so I can reacquire that. But you know what, we're right up against the border here. I'm going to try and line myself up to come in from the other way. We don't want to end up crossing that border on the egress. That vertical line to the right hand side of our HSI there on the left screen, that is the border. We're actually well within inside the border, and this guy is well within our side of the border. You can see there it's not just like a few meters, it is well across. I won't quite say 10 miles, but he's certainly over 5. I'm just going to give myself a bit more distance as we come on downwind relative to the target. We're now going to turn base. Master arm is on. We'll verify our weapon systems momentarily. We can see we've got the rockets 152 selected. Players, should we need them, are ready to go. We're now on the base leg relative to the target. He's still pushing south. He is still heading deeper into our territory, so there's no question. This guy is on a mission. And if I do let him get to the target area, he is there. He will straight on Vaziani. They have a range of around 170 nautical miles, these missiles. He'll pull into the side, bit of grass and fire, and then I imagine try run away as well, under the cover of the fog. So we're turning into this guy now. We need to get an update on his position, because that's all just guesswork based on where he was. There we see the brick. Yeah, you see, guesswork where he was and where he is are two different things. Let's reacquire on that brick. Come on, onto the brick. There we go. Get the lock in, and 20 knots, 150 on the heading. There's it updated. Let's zoom in to get a little bit more precise. I'm going to get the HMD display just on a little bit. I'm going to dim down the hood, because once this is done, you know what, I don't think I need the HMD. Let's just turn that off. Let's make the hood the bright, then all the info is there. We're not going to see him anyway, or if we are, it's only going to be for a second. Get rid of the auto throttle at this point. Uncage the burners. Radar, we're aware. We see it unwinding, fire, 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 and pulling up, roll off. Keep climb, let's head west. And with that, we're going to have to fly away and turn back round and get a battle damage assessment. Because we're not going to be able to get visual of it, the only thing that we can do is see, is there still something on radar moving or not. That will at least let us know, alright, he could be destroyed, it could mean that he's been hit, he's been damaged, he's no longer able to move, or that he's just hiding. It could mean any of those things. But if we still see him marching across like before, then we know 100% that the rockets have missed. Let's turn back round and see if we see anything. And the idea would be that we don't see anything on radar anymore. We've still got the estimated position on the SA page. That's there. That's based on previous guesstimations. There's the previous guesstimation on radar, and there's the target positions. So as it would seem, there is no moving targets on the ground at this moment in time. I'm thinking if we go to map mode, click in on that area and let's try expand. We'll just offset it a little bit more. Let's reduce speed. Let's expand 2. Let's expand 3. Do we got any evidence of any targets or anything smoking? Let's see if we can see anything. Be real careful that I don't fly into terrain while I'm doing this. All that we see is clearly a bunch of buildings, and we're about to fly past it. I'm unable to discern from that. There's one or two things in the field. They could just be buildings as well. We see them all round. So unfortunately, we're not able to verify destruction of the target. All that we're able to do is ascertain that we've got some collateral damage in a populated area, which is not great. But, you know, we are the Americans. These things will happen. Come out of that mode. Let's set back to ground moving track. So battle damage report, definitely we hit the enemy. That goes without question. Forgot to turn my externals off. We hit the enemy convoy. That goes without question. We just started about, it's just at E3. That's great. With respect to damage, well, all that we know is that at the very least we damaged one or more. They've all pulled in. It could be that we've killed all 3. We will have to wait and see. I mean, I can't even cheat by looking on the F10 map because I set it so that I can't, because that would completely defeat the object of this mission. So I guess that what I would do under these circumstances is climb and do a couple of loitering dial turns, so flying as slow as possible to give myself maximum time on target, which is found, incidentally. Let's have a little look. Let's get this in. We come onto the F-Pass page and we see we've got max range and we've also got max endurance. We see here, based on my settings, if I go Mach 0.37 where I am now, it's going to give myself the max endurance. Unless I'm willing to climb up to 25,000 and then doing that gives me max endurance. But you know what? Actually, I only get 59 minutes up there, whereas down here it says I get an hour. And so right off the bat, those figures are not exactly what I would agree with, but let's make an effort to that. So let's slow down to what it says. In this case, Mach 0.38. Particularly slow. I'm not entirely convinced that that would be the efficient speed, but you never know. We've got those big canisters dragging, so maybe it is. Start adding a little bit of speed. The slower we get, the higher alpha, and then all of a sudden we get past the backside of the curve and it's no longer efficient. Okay, I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, I'm going to go with Mach 0.39, what we had before. So I'm going to auto throttle that. Let's have a look at the fuel burn at this moment in time. Again, we need to be level, and the best way to do that is, despite the turn, get the barometric hold on and let the autopilot keep us in this real lazy turn. If I zoom in, we've got fuel flow around 3.7 per side, 3.6, 3.5. I guess that's going to go up down a little bit. 3.4. We're holding 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. Okay, so let's call it 3.6 per side. So that's 7,200 pounds per hour overall. We've got 7,800 pounds in there. It's saying we can endure around 55 minutes, or 59. That's based at 2,000 pounds. Well, you know what? We've just real roughly calculated we're going to use 7.2 in an hour. So if it's saying 59 minutes to leave us with 2,000 pounds, I'm going to say that's really close. That's really close. Perhaps if I did get that 0.1 Mach down, it would get us there. But you know what? That's close enough. So with that bonus there, loiter tutorial is thrown in. So we'll ignore that. This ordinarily would push out to our final waypoint. We haven't got one set. You know why? Because that comes with the next bit of the tutorial. I didn't want to put one in ahead of time. So as we come back round, we're still in air to ground mode. Let's get the radar back sweeping and let's make way towards last known position of these targets. See if there's anything else. And if we don't see anything now, we can assume we got them all. If they're starting to move again, then clearly we didn't get them all. I would be surprised if I did get them all, because it was a convoy and not just a solitary unit. We're turning in. But then again, it's possible. It's possible that I pulled up exactly right and every rocket came off just right and took out every one of them. I believe there were 3 altogether. Again, Intel doesn't... All Intel knew was it was a convoy. It's all good missions start off with Intel says. It's real original, you see. Alright, I'm going to assume I got them all. There's nothing else moving on radar. You can see last known position and there's nothing either side. So with that, let's come out of air to ground mode, number 1. And this is the final stage of the tutorial. So we'll come out of target mode on the HSI. And I just know that home is vaguely towards waypoint 0. But clearly that doesn't help me. That just says that's the point where I began the mission from, which was not the runway. It was the parking, and I don't want to touch down in that parking zone because it's not going to end well for me or for the other aircraft sat there. Gonna get rid of auto throttle. Let's go full power. Burners on, why not? Let's get some speed going. Let's burn some weight off. Right level. I'm keeping the ground radar mode on, that's why we've got that flashing B, just because, alright, I know, I'm fairly confident there's no major mountains between here and there, but you know it's foggy and you don't want to be that person who, oh, who put that tree there kind of thing, because you know, you see that all the time as well. Let's gate the burners off, go mill power, and I'm going to level us off around 15. Doesn't have to be exact, 14.5 will do nicely. And autopilot ATT BL mode set. Got air to ground mode radar in. Let's get rid of that. Let's pop. With regular map mode, we can see black here, that's the sea, here's the land. So we're basically flying down along the coast, which is what we want. I'm now going to focus on the left side, going to get rid of the SA page, get the HSI back on there, and come onto the waypoints, and I'm going to look for my first blank waypoint. So I've got a waypoint there, there, and there even, and now we're back to 0. Get rid of the sequencing. I'm going to get, though, on the page, if I zoom in, see we've got 3 lots of sequences. Sequence 1 box is that, then we've got 2, and then box it, and then 3, and then box it. So I'm going to come back to 1, but make sure it's not boxed. That's crucial, because otherwise you can't actually cycle past the waypoints. We see here waypoint 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and it all disappears. That's because there is no waypoint 8, but we're going to fill that in. I'm going to slow down a little bit to give myself a little bit more time. Zoom back in, and I'm going to lock the track IR there. Just 1 sec so we don't all feel sick. I'm going to come onto the data page, come onto the UFC, press this button here, re-engage auto throttle so I don't stall as I'm doing the tutorial. Come onto the F10 map, and this is the airfield here that I'm going to be landing at. I'm going to press Control Y, I believe twice. Alt. There we go. Alt and Y, forget that, Alt and Y. So in map mode, F10 view, press Alt and Y twice, and that changes these waypoints to the metric system from the traditional hours, minutes, and seconds. This is going to be my first waypoint, this specific beacon here, this ADF 335 NDB, code Bravo India. I might check out later if that's really there. Anyway, so let's look at it. 42, 14, 97 north. 42, 14, 98. Let's call it rounded up. UFC, position north. Press the north button. 42, 14, 98. And that's north. Enter that. Next one is east. We know it's east because everything in Caucasus is north by east. We look there. We've got 41, 59, 18 rounded up. 41, 59, 18. I'm just going to verify that I've got that right. So 42, 14, 98. Move the mouse over. 42, 14, 98. East 41, 59, 18. East 41, 59, 18. So all that matches up. Come back to elevation in a minute. Let's move over to waypoint 9. UFC, position, and press the north because that's where we're going to begin. And I'm going to pick in between these two landing strips here, the landing aiming points. So I'm going to go with 42, 14, 56. 42, 14, 56. Remember, we pressed north first. Let's enter that in. Let's come onto the east side. And we've got 42, 02, 13. 42, 02, 13. You did see got 12, 7. I'm rounding that right up. I'm not bothering. I'm just saying it's 13. And this is going to be accurate enough with respect to a runway. You could get more precise and drill down even further in the coordinates, it's just going to be a bit too much for my brain to remember. So let's real quick verify that. 42, 14, 56. 42, 14, 56. And then we've got 42, 02, 13. And we've got 42, 02, 13. So that's all good. So let's start with the elevation on the back side here. So UFC elevation. Let's come to feet. And we see we're at 43 feet. So we'll click that in. Now what we're going to do is a little bit of mental math. We're going to zoom out and we're going to get the entire approach in. So we've got the landing point here and we've got our final approach fixed here. And I'm just going to click on the ruler tool, right click and get to the landing point, which is about there. Right click again. And you see we've got two pieces of information here. We've got, let me just move it like that. We've got a range 2.27, so I'm just going to call that 2.3. And we've got a heading, which is 094 degrees, so east. We might have to knock 7 off for the magnetic variation. So it's going to be 87 degrees to 94. So we'll call it 090. And then if we have to deviate left or right 3 degrees, we know why. But importantly, let's just think 2.3. So the standard 3-degree descent profile is 1,000 feet for 3 nautical miles, or said another way, around about 300 feet per nautical mile. But we can see we've got more than one, we've got 2, that's going to be 600 feet, and then 0.3 of a nautical mile, because we rounded that up. So 0.3 of 300 feet is 100, so we've got 600 feet for the 2 nautical miles, and then 0.3 gives us another 100 feet. So in total, I'm looking at 700 feet above whatever the ground level is, which is 43 feet. So I'm going to round that up and call it 750 feet by this point here. Let's come to waypoint 8, sorry, not 10. Waypoint 9 was the landing. Waypoint 8 was that initial one that we didn't give an elevation yet. We see it's still 0. I'm going to come into the UFC position, elevation page. And on the feet, I'm going to give it 750 and enter that in. And there we see that. And that is going to be my final approach fix that sets me up nicely for the airfield. I'm now going to come onto sequence information. And it only goes up to 7. So we're going to add 8 and 9 onto the end. So I'm going to press this one here, sequence information. I'm going to come onto the insert and I'm going to press 8 to insert waypoint 8 into that sequence. Enter, you see it's added onto the bottom there. And let's do the same again, insert waypoint 9 and enter that in. That's the final approach fix, or the FAF, and the touchdown zone at number 9. So with that, avoiding the hills up front, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? Wow. Track IR unlock, and alright, I actually think Eagle Dynamics have done something to improve the fog in the hills, because I know it's still completely messed up with the clouds, but look at that. That actually looks pretty sweet. There's the E3 that was giving us information. I'm going to come off. Let's put something a bit more useful on the right hand side. Let's get rid of the radar altogether, and you know what, we can put the checklist on there for now. And waypoint 8, which is currently selected, we see that on the left hand side. If I come out of the menu, let's just go onto the HSI page. If I put the sequencing information back on, we can now see there's waypoint 8. And if I just real quick bump it up to waypoint 9, we see it's a very short distance. We know that to be the case. We know it was only about 2.3 nautical miles. So let's aim towards waypoint 8. We know that we need to be there for 750. To aid my aiming for this position, what I'm going to do is put a weapons designate down on that waypoint 8. And then real quick, when I switch over to 9, I'm going to come into waypoint mode, move it up to waypoint 9, and then weapons designate it once again. So that's going to happen in quite quick succession. So here we go with waypoint 8. I'm going to weapons designate it, and now we see we've got target info instead of a waypoint. But critically, on the heads up display, we now see an arrow pointing towards the waypoint. That is also based off the altitude. So as long as we cross through that waypoint at the correct altitude, which is set at 750, we're at the right height. So what I'm going to do as we begin this approach is do the landing checklist. So we've got wheels and flaps, well that's deferred. Hook not required, anti-skid is on, and harnesses is tightened this time. Dispenser, let's get rid of that. Get rid of the EW system also, and there we've got aircraft weight information, so that's great. So I'm going to say, other than wheels and flaps, landing checklist complete, they're deferred, and we'll be able to verify that on the way down because we'll hear a horn if we forget to do so. So with that, I'm going to pop the HSA onto the right screen. That's important because you get these caution messages on the left that obscure the lower. We don't want that. For the purposes of the tutorial, I'm just going to pop the ADI onto the left, make sure it's in INS mode. Usually I would have that down here and put the FCS information on there, but I'm going to go with it like this. Just readjust myself, get myself into my game on position in the seat. You all know what that means, I'm sure. You've got one way that you sit to be comfy and one situation that you sit when it's game on. So it is now game on. Let's get rid of the auto throttle. Let's cut the speed and let's dive into the fog. I'm going to give myself full trust into the altimeters as I dive in straight in. Let's get rid of master arm. Going to slowly begin pulling out. Don't want to rip the wings off. And there's Radalt taking over. 2.7, so we've got about another 2,000 feet to go. I'm going to drop the range back to 10 nautical miles, and I might even drop it down to 5. I know 10 is the sort of standard, but you know, we're dealing with precise things here. Let's go 5, that's the most we can get. We see where we are now over there. Let's get the helmet on. There's the final approach fix, and we just flew past, so the runway's going to be around there. So my aim is to fly over the approach fix in such a way that we come out with the runway in front, and you'll see me lining that up on the HSI momentarily. So Radalt mode is in. I'm going to brighten up the heads up display to max. There's the altitude alert, which is great. Good to know that that's working. We've got plenty of height. I'm now going to roll that back to that 750-ish. Because I want to be at 750 crossing that point. Again, it's actually going to wind it back even more. 600 if I hear that, because it's 750 above the sea. Remember, the ground was about 43 feet above the ground. The ground was 43 feet above sea level is what I'm trying to say. Right, let's close into that final approach fix, which you see is still on as my target, and then my aim is to try and line up that next waypoint behind it as best I can before I get to the final approach fix. And there, the final approach fix, I've got the vertical information. You see, I've still got a little ways to descend, but not much. And it looks like the airfield is going to be slightly off to the right behind it. So to correct that, I'm going to come to the left a little bit. And let's slow down. I want to be wheels down, flaps full by the time I get to that final approach fix. How are we doing there? Well, it's a lot more lined up than it was before, but I still think a little ways to go. And make sure I don't descend through. And we're below 250 now, so I'm going to go wheels down, flaps full, and with that landing checklist complete, just confirm that we've got 3 greens. I guess it's 4, the flaps counts as 1. So yeah, we've got 4 greens. And it looks like I'm now in line with the final approach fix and the airfield. I'm going to start trimming that E bracket off, get myself that nice yellow donut in. There we have it. And we're perfectly in line. I'm now going to add power. It's important I don't descend through that waypoint until I get there. Afterwards, I know it's going to be that 3-degree profile because I went to all that effort setting the height up right. So here we go, 0.6. 0.5. If I come out of radar mode, you can see I'm real close to 750. I'm about 20 feet off. 0.1. There we go. So I'm going to now get rid of target, waypoint 9, quickly weapons designate it, and there's the runway. Look at that, 3 degrees. So don't start descending at 5. 3 degrees. Let's get the flight path vector onto that point. Now it's important to go steady, and when we get close it's going to start and drift. It's important to recognize that you're getting close and don't chase it. Just keep the same heading and angle of dangle that you're coming at before, which is now. Yeah, you'll see it start running away in a minute. Don't chase it. We've got the heading sorted. We're real nice and stable. If you're unstable at this point, now's the time to go around. Once you get in real close, 0.4, 0.3, the thing's going to start and run away. Don't chase it. Make small visual corrections if you've got them, but don't chase the instruments. They're no good. 0.1, there we go. There's the flare. There's the touchdown. Air brakes are on. Checking the throttles back and forth. Again, if you don't check them, the engines are going to be stuck at 69% RPM. I don't know how many people stop with them there, but plenty. Check them to get them back to 65. And by check them, let me just put this on. What I mean is, when you touch down, yeah, you've got your power and you bring it back when you land. Just go like that. Once all your wheels are down, just do that once. And that'll make sure that you get your throttle from flight idle down to ground idle, which are two different things. I'll get rid of that again. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Senaki Kolki, and with a successful mission, and we've got no more Scud missile threat. And with that, that concludes the tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Hope you found it informative. If you did like it, please leave a like. If you found it informative and want to see more, please subscribe. And if you've got any thoughts, leave them in below. Thank you very much. Take care. Have a good one. Bye bye.